It is the top of the hour. This is NewsNation Rush Hour. I'm Nichole Berlie, and we have breaking news on a pandemic-era border restriction. A judge stopping that policy known as Title 42 from ending Monday as planned. That policy allows the U.S. to turn migrants away at the border. So we want to check back in with NewsNation border correspondent Robert Sherman. So Robert, tell us what all this means for those border communities and the migrants trying to get across.
Well, so, Nichole, we've had a few people down here pumping the brakes on exactly. Effectively, they're telling us that this is going to keep the status quo in place, which what we've been seeing down here at the border has been quite busy. But they're hoping that this will, on the one hand, not cause more migrant encounters to happen down here on the southern border, and on the other hand, give everyone a bit more time in order to find a long-term solution to the southern border and everything that's been going on down here. I want you to take a look at some of these numbers that we saw in the month of April. You had over 234,000 border. That was an all-time record in a single month down here. It comes out to about 8,000 or so migrant encounters a day. The DHS numbers suggested that if Title 42 were to expire on Monday, they could see more than double that, up to 18,000. That was their largest estimate of migrant encounters per day. So that is a sigh of relief that some here in the local law enforcement community are breathing at this hour. But again, everyone contends done in finding a long-term solution. I want you to listen to Brandon Judd from the National Border Patrol Council, who we just spoke with a few moments ago. He said that now that you have this breath of fresh air, you have to tackle some of the underlying reasons that you're seeing some people come here to the southern border. And part of that, he contends, is that the law needs to be enforced a bit more forcefully and strictly. Listen to what he had to say.
If I could wave a magic wand, I would say get rid of catch and release. Either go back to the Remain in Mexico program, migrant protection protocols, or hold people in our custody pending a deportation or asylum proceeding.
So that's Brandon Judd from the National Border Patrol Council's perspective, believing that you need to enforce the law a bit more forcefully down here on the border. That is topic, but from the law enforcement perspective, they believe that if you have consequences for coming into the U.S., that will ultimately prevent more people from coming here. On the other hand, though, you have those who are seeking asylum down here on the U.S.-Mexico border, which is what a lot of people talk about as they try to seek economic refuge here in the United States. And addressing that whole conversation is more long-term. We hear people talk about that you do need that more long-term solution about how those folks will navigate the courts, because there are backlogs that are lasting years here in the United States, and there isn't an expedient process on that front. So, moral of the story, a lot more work to be done down here when it comes to the the issue of immigration here in the U.S., but many believe they now have a little bit more time to find that solution. Nichole?
Yeah, so many sides on this. All right, Robert Sherman live for us at the border on this breaking news. Thank you for that. All right, we want to bring in now attorney Harry Nelson to get initial reaction on this. So, Harry, what do you think about this judge saying that Title 42 will remain in place?
You know, this problem has been of what to do with all of the migrants at the southern border in terms of the COVID crisis and the health risks has been with us for 2 years. Candidly, I think the Biden administration is actually breathing a sigh of relief that this order gives a little more time, because we're in a very messy transition period, and it was going to be a very abrupt kind of opening things up, and this is going to be an additional period of time to get it right. And it's unfortunate there's going to be some people with humanitarian needs seeking asylum who are going to be hurt by this, but the reality is it's not a change from the way things have been over the last 2 years. And so it's just a little bit more time to make sure we get it right.
Yeah, a little bit more time there. You know, so an interesting part of this ruling that the injunction is supposed to remain in place until there's a trial on the merits. So at this point, you know, again, that this has been in place for 2 years. When could we actually see that trial on the merits happen?
The judge has a lot of discretion. It probably is going to be at least a few months. I think it's realistic. Most trials, it'd be hard to see a trial before three to 6 months out. But you know, the real issue here is that the states, all the southern border states, are complaining that this is going to impose a huge burden on them, and they're the ones whose interests are kind of competing with this federal policy. So I think it will happen probably later part of this year, maybe carry into 2023. But we will get a hearing on this and a resolution of some of these very thorny issues.
You know, as you mentioned, a lot of states really speaking up on this. We know that there are some states that are actually suing the Biden administration, specifically in regards to Title 42. Now, you're mentioning that we could see this trial start maybe sometime later this year, possibly go into next year. But once it starts, how long do you think that trial would actually last?
It's a tough call. I suspect it's probably a week or two of witnesses. The states are talking about issues around human trafficking. There's the issues of how do we solve the COVID contagious disease problem, and how do we, that's one issue that needs to be addressed. The states are complaining about human trafficking issues, drug trafficking issues, and how those get addressed as we open it up, and how the costs get allocated. So it's probably a couple weeks of trial, and it's also possible that there'll be some negotiating about federal dollars to address these issues that the states are complaining about.
And Harry, one last question for you. Obviously a lot of people really hoping that this policy would remain in place. But do you expect some, immediate backlash, from people on the other side?
Look, I think people who have been concerned about the border reopening, which is actually a majority of Americans, or close to a majority, are going to be happy that we've kind of kicked the can down the road here. I do think that human rights activists, progressives who have been upset about the border closures are going to be frustrated by this. But again, I view today as just one smaller piece of a much bigger story.
Right.
And there'll be lessons that come out of this. And I'm sure there's going to be lots to be unhappy about. But this was a difficult decision. Whatever politics came into it, I think, like many things that happened during the pandemic, we'll look back on this as a difficult moment where political leaders had to make choices, and some were better than others. And I think it's too early to tell how this one comes out.
All right, that is fair. All right, Harry Nelson, attorney, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We do want to get some more context on this issue. We're going to bring in Sal Rivera with NewsNation's Border Report. Sal has been covering the border for nearly 30 years. So what do you think the border will look like now, Sal, with this policy extended? Will it deter people? Because we know that there were some people waiting at the border to see what would happen.
Well, right now, all we really have are predictions, expectations, extreme. Some people believe that half of Latin America will end up along our southern border when and if Title 42 goes away. I've also heard it's going to be Y2K all over again, where we expect the end of the world and nothing really happens. A few weeks ago, I was speaking with a very high-ranking official within the Mexican government, and he told me that it's going to be a desmadre. And translated, that sort of means a cluster, and you fill in the blank. But by talking with migrants in Arizona the last few days, they were telling me that Title 42 really doesn't matter, has no bearing, it's irrelevant to them. They are going to come, or we're going to come one way or another. I spoke with a woman from Venezuela who left her hometown 2 months ago, long before President Biden announced that he wanted to end Title 42. She told me one way or another she was coming to the U.S. because back home she has nothing to eat, nowhere to live, and her life is in constant danger.
Yeah, a lot of people certainly, have no other options, or none that they can see. Robert Sherman, our border correspondent, has been reporting, from the southern border at this point for months. You live near the border. So from that perspective, what has been the impact for those border towns as so many more migrants are crossing than ever before?
I guess it depends on where you are at along the southern border, what region you live in. Like here in San Diego, we really haven't seen a crush of people coming in, and migrants who have made it north of the border are being taken care of by social service agencies. And the county of San Diego has pledged millions of dollars to help migrants who might come across the border if and when Title 42 goes away. If you go towards the east in Yuma County, for example, in southwestern Arizona, they will tell you that their hospitals, their 911 call system, emergency services have been impacted heavily, severely by migrants who are already here. If you go further into Texas, there are small towns, counties that are already declaring states of emergency because of the migrants who are already there and because of the migrants that they expect to see in the coming weeks, if not months.
Well, Sal, as we said, at the top of this hit, you've been covering the border at this point for nearly 3 decades. How is it different now in 2022 from when you started?
I think the biggest change, and even having grown up right here in San Ysidro, right between Tijuana and San Diego, the biggest change is right there, is that border barrier. But in terms of people in the last few years, the pandemic had an effect. But in the last year and a half, you have definitely seen more people, higher numbers of folks who are coming across the border. And what is the driver? Again, according to the migrants, it's not Title 42. It is the economic situation back home in places like Honduras, El Salvador, Mexico, Haiti, and other countries. They were telling me, again, after talking to them in Arizona the last few days, that the reason they are here really is not about Title 42. It's not the politics. It's that they're simply seeking a better life for themselves and for their families, that they have nothing back home. So as long as those conditions don't change in Central America and other parts of the world, we're going to keep seeing people heading to the U.S. with or without Title 42.
All right, Sal Rivera reporting for us from the border on this breaking news. Sal, thank you for that. All right, we are staying on this story. Again, it is breaking news. We want to bring in now Jonathon Lines, Yuma County Board of Supervisors. So, Jonathon, this breaking news just happening really within the past hour or so. What is your reaction to today's ruling from that judge?
It comes on the heels of a meeting that we just had with Senator Mark Kelly here in Yuma, planning for the end of Title 42 and looking to our NGOs or our social service groups to see what they would do. I'm also the chairman of the local food bank, and we have been severely impacted. You mentioned a little bit earlier what the impact it has had on our hospital. We've had multiple births occurring as people have been coming across. The hospital reported today that they have had over $1 million in non-recompensed services just in the delivery room, as well as 1,200 other people coming in there. So for us, this pause or tapping the brakes on Title 42 isn't necessarily a victory. It will give people more time to prepare. However, we're concerned with the overall impact of this mass immigration across the border and what it's doing to the small local economies. We have businesses who work in the healthcare field who've had to dedicate entire teams of people to processing those who've come across the border, and it really has taken a strain on our small community.
Jonathon, I think no matter what people think about this, whichever side they fall on, it's certainly different when you live, work at the border, because you're experiencing something that, for example, us here in Chicago, it's a very different experience. So for you, what has this been like? I mean, you just gave us that big sigh. I would imagine this has been pretty taxing.
It's something we deal with on a daily basis because of the numbers of people coming across. If they surge past 1,000 a day, that overwhelms the ability of Border Patrol, of DHS, to process these people. They've recently doubled the size of their processing tent and brought people from all over the United States in order to help process these people. That doesn't go to the root of the problem. That simply addresses the symptoms and the fact that we have a mass illegal migration occurring at our border. Talking to some of these people, I know that they're struggling in their countries. I feel very sorry for them. I've lived in South America. I've seen how many of these people struggle with their lives, and that really is a function of their governments. Don't necessarily need to comment on that. I'm glad that people still think of the United States as the land of opportunity, but we have laws in place. The Remain in Mexico policy was working, and we were not taxing the system.
I want to go back to something that you may have just heard, from our correspondent, Sal Rivera there, speaking to a woman coming from Venezuela who says that she was going to get into the U.S. no matter what because she had no other options. And there are so many people that really feel like they have no other options. And I know that there are so many different perspectives on this. But Jonathon, what about those thousands of people, those migrants that are camping out in the 10 cities at the border, hoping that the judge would rule the other way? They're going to end up somewhere.
Yeah, and I feel very sorry for them. As chairman of the food bank, we are on that first line of defense, providing, or first line of, like, not necessarily defense, but being able to provide the resources to the people that have come across in a very humanitarian way. And it is a humanitarian crisis. They've been led to believe that they're going to be allowed to come in, and they have placed all of their hope in the Biden administration, not really realizing what they're doing to the people on the ground and the burden that they're placing upon the people and the communities that they're coming into. Some of the people have had an amazing attitude, and some of the people have been very difficult to work with, even as we have provided some food and water. It wasn't necessarily what they were accustomed to, and ended up throwing it away, even though they said they were hungry. So I've seen a little bit of everything in this humanitarian crisis. Some very appreciative, and some just really don't care.
Yeah, and of course, people who are very appreciative to get that food and water, I'm sure. So what happens next? Because, as we just said, this is essentially really just kicking the can down the road. I mean, ultimately, this does have to be litigated. There has to be a hearing on this. So what happens next for you, Jonathon, either way?
Well, we will continue to do what we're always doing. Some of the law enforcement here, they like to joke that we have the best 5-star rating on Yelp for providing assistance to anybody who comes across the border. It's not really a laughing matter. We've had 17 people from 17 special interest countries come across the border in Yuma, Arizona. We've had 104 different nationalities. Mm-hmm. What's disconcerting right now is that 71% of these people coming across are single men. They're not the families that we've seen before. And that's challenging because it's a completely different demographic, and they're a little bit more anxious and difficult to deal with.
All right. Jonathon Lines, certainly a tough topic, so many different angles on this. And again, you are on the ground dealing with this every day. We appreciate you speaking with us. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.